PBS the other night had a program on two women who lost their Medicare benefits for their children. And their children have mental problems. Both of the girls tried to commit suicide many times. Not very successful, but many times. And the other problem is they become violent. So they're kept docile by drugs. Somebody says, well, that thing. It seems that there's a lot of... When I was growing up, a person who was strange, you might say, and dangerous, was sent to a state hospital. There was a lot of state hospitals. One of those state hospitals was Tinley Park. There was another one up on Narragansett. There was one on the north side. There was one over here. There was one out in Elgin. There was a whole bunch of these. What happened to them? They closed. Why? Little pill, once a day. Keeps them passive. Make them rational. Keep them from becoming violent or committing suicide. You could almost think that 100,000 people who committed suicide last year with overdose of fentanyl committed suicide. You had the 49,000 people who put a bullet into their head, committed suicide. Were they stable? We look at it as maybe not. Access to firearms. The one who committed mass murder on 2022, July 4th at Highland Park, planned his attack. He was mentally disturbed, but his father got him a FOID card, and he went in and bought a assault weapon. And it wasn't. If he wasn't caught, once he was shot people in Highland Park, he was heading north to another parade. If he got to that parade, he was speeding. He got pulled over. Okay. They found assault weapons and ammo in the car and got arrested. But was he on medication? Very likely. He's always had mental problems. He always was a violent child. Was he taking his medication? Looks like he wasn't. That's the other problem. The ones who are on medication drop off of it. When they closed the hospitals, mental hospitals, they also, because they just give them a pill and threw them on the street. Now you're normal. No, you're not. If they go off their medication, they become violent or self-destructive. And PBS showed this stuff, is that one woman had lost $40,000 a year in money, and she looked to who would accept her child for hospitalization, where her child can't have access to hammers or knives or screwdrivers or anything that can be turned into weapons, where the child can't have access to matches. Oh yeah, nothing like burning a house down. And very destructive. And you almost have to do is have the person, the child in this case, medicated all day long and have somebody watching over them. Yeah. You really can't leave them at home. Of course, when they go to school, or your teachers know that you have a child that can anytime explode. Anything can set them off. And when I was growing up, there was a kid in the neighborhood that was, I can't say he was wacko, he was just bully. He was bully at school, he was bully around. They gave him a baseball bat in school. They're going to play baseball. He took the bat and he went to the bike rack. He smashed the bikes, the spokes in the bikes, because he doesn't have a bike. Yeah. Whatever happened to him? Did he grow up? Don't even know. One day he was there in school, the next day he wasn't in school, and don't know, maybe he was in a state hospital. I worked at for handicap, I worked at Browns Lake Lodge, which most of the clients there were in wheelchairs. Did they have, I don't remember anybody getting mad or throwing things and that thing. It could be, but no. During I worked in a church that had a food bank, and a pretty good sized church, big food bank, and they would employ the local students who were physically challenged in wheelchairs or mentally challenged, and they would help. What they would do is they would get a carton, they would say a carton of candy, and they would break the carton of candy down. It's a food bank. Things are donated. For vegetables, they would take 2 or 3 of something and put it into a bag and tie it, and that's what they did all day, and they got paid. Okay, and hopefully they get better. And what happens when they don't? They become adults. Once they become adults, they graduate from high school, and someone else's problem. Alzheimer's, well, not Alzheimer's, but some of the children basically will work in supermarkets. They're doing simple things. They're getting paid. They're doing simple stuff. They're taking care of themselves. Other type of students are working with them. You knew when they were in. 8 o'clock they came in, and 2 o'clock in the afternoon they went home. They would fill up the shelves. They would do all the simple stuff the other volunteers would not do. And they did that 5 days a week. So what's the downsize? The 6-footers were a downsize. When you have a child who's 6 feet tall and built like a linebacker, you really have to, and you have the handlers using psychology to keep them in line. When I walk down the aisle, coming through, excuse me, sorry, coming through. You try to keep them from handling forklifts. Jacks, warehouse jacks. They like to do that, saying, "Oh, I can handle this." And when they can't, something breaks. I had an incident where a 6-footer, there was a guy on a forklift. He got off the forklift and to rearrange a pallet, and the kid jumped on the forklift. And when our worker reached to get for the key, the kid grabbed him. And he had to be talked down gently. Don't do this. Oh no, you can't handle this. Oh, I can do this. This is mine. Sounds like somebody did Donald say the same thing? But yeah, he had to be taken down, and he didn't show up the next day. No. When somebody attacks one of the volunteers, he was attacked. He was grabbed by this big hunk of student who had to be literally, he had to remove the hand. And you got women who basically they're handlers like that. The guy didn't show up the next day because his medication didn't work. And this is what happens to the two women who were off of Medicare Medicaid. They need the medicine to keep their kid docile, or the kid can get violent to themselves, or they can get violent to others. When they're on Medicaid, they're docile, like me. When they're not, they can be destructive. So you really that thing. At the very end, you have the words about that thing. It said 7.4 million people in the United States have mental challenges. And they have access to, in Texas, they have access to firearms in many states. So you want to raise the level of who has access, from 18 on up to 21 or more, and you want to put them in a database because all the mass killings are going on. It's like, why doesn't Texas want to do this? What they don't understand is psychologically disturbed children are giving access to firearms, and just like giving them a driver's license. You have to do certain things to get a driver's license. Well, most of the time. Usually you have to speak English, but I can't say anything about that. But, you just gave somebody who's mentally problems a license to drive a 2,000-pound vehicle. Wait a minute. If you challenge that, Republicans would have a hard time. I can say I had lapse of memory. My life back in the teens. The first time was I voted for Donald Trump, and then I really lapsed down, and I voted for him twice. Maybe I should have been on some kind of drug. But yeah, it's a big problem we have. And I was surprised that 7.4 million are mentally challenged in the United States. Maybe I shouldn't be too surprised when I see drivers on the street. It's like, hey, there's a stop sign there. Or driving in the left lane, and the guy in the right lane wants to make a left turn, and so he goes in front of you. The same thing, the guy on, didn't you ever put on a blinker? Or they don't stop at stoplights and stop signs. They just go through. No U-turn. They U-turn. It's like, oh, that's why I don't like driving cars. That's why I don't like driving. It's dangerous. Oh, so, okay, I'm done.